Hello and welcome to the first of two shows looking back over the year and some of the guests we've had in the studio. It's been a busy year and we've had some interesting people. Coming up, Patrick Hawes, the composer, graced us twice, and Matthew Grove joined us to talk about crime reduction. And we'll also see the times when even we get it wrong. In maintenance, it looks like the schedule is mostly back on track. I was getting a bit ahead of myself then, wasn't I? In this first episode, we'll take a look back between January and June, and we start with Councillor Peter Wheatley from North East Lincolnshire talking about health and well-being.
So, first of all, obesity is something that affects Britain increasingly, and I just wondered, really, I mean, I've got some statistics here from NHS England that say in our county, 19.1% of children at the age of 11 are now obese. I mean, is this something that's becoming more and more of a problem?
I do believe that it's one of the largest problems that the 21st century is going to face with regard to obesity throughout the whole of the world. There's been reports just recently with regard to the way in which there's over 2 million people in Great Britain alone that would actually qualify for national health surgery to help them combat obesity, which is a lot of people. That would come out something in the region about 450 people in North East Lincolnshire alone that would be capable of going on to this NHS scheme. So it is a big problem, and I think it's actually got to get worse if we don't address the situation pretty soon.
And where I was just talking a moment ago about obesity in young people. I mean,
yes.
Is this something we need to tackle, and how do we do this?
I think that the figure you used was 19.1, which is about on the national average, but that doesn't mean to say that is good.
It's roughly 1 in 5, isn't it, really?
Is overweight. And especially with regard to the young children, what we've got to try and do is encourage them to be more aware of the diets that they have, and B, more aware of what physical activity can do to reduce the obesity rates throughout the 1 in 5 children.
As well as organising the event, you took part as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I took part. It's my 4th year doing Sleep Easy, so yeah, I was out there. Didn't get any sleep on the night, but I was out there raising funds, yeah, for the event.
What was it like being out there sleeping in freshly placed car park for the evening?
Because we were quite high up in the car park, there's little protection from the elements. You had the roof, which kept us dry, thankfully, on the night, but the wind was certainly howling through there. And then when the lights went out around about midnight, it was pitch black, really dark. Yeah, you had all the noises during the night, which I think unnerved a few people, and it sort of gave you a different feel for what it might be like to be homeless, rather than just the conditions. It's all the other things that come with it.
Because of course you do that for one evening. There's 70 people around you who turned up that night. It's a lot of fun, but of course you know that after that evening you can go back home to your bed.
Exactly, yeah. I think come 6 o'clock in the morning, we were all really relieved to be packing up, going back to our beds, and nice warm home and spending a few hours of sleep. But of course, when you're homeless, you haven't got that luxury, and they will be obviously facing a full day out on the streets with everything that the weather can throw at them.
You're watching the best of Estuary TV News. Coming up, we hear from Tony Jamieson talking about the Sporting Memories project.
Not everybody is a huge sports fan.
In March, we were visited by Julia Robertson, who came to talk about the vital need for foster families in East Yorkshire, and composer Patrick Hawes visited in March to talk about his new composition.
You work for Fostering Solutions. Tell me what it is they do.
We're a large national independent fostering agency, and we have offices all over the country, from Scotland, Wales and all over England, and we're providing locally based fostering services to children and young people, throughout the country.
So you will have a list of carers, and local authorities, if they don't have enough carers or fosterers on their books, then they can go to you.
They can come to us, yes, and we have a range of foster carers who are able to provide a range of placements for the children and young people who access the service.
And is there a shortage? I mean, you operate in the Yorkshire region. I mean, what are we talking about in Yorkshire? How many children?
There's approximately a shortage of of around 600 foster carers in the Yorkshire region, but a national shortage of about 8,600,
Right.
and those numbers fluctuate, obviously.
Be able to tell you whether you can manage these situations would be you, Sally. 'Cause,
Yes, yes.
I mean, how many children do you think that you've provided foster care for?
Oh, probably I should think about 12 children in all, from 6 months old to the last one where she was nearly 19.
Over what sort of time period?
10 years.
10 years. And
Yes.
you've got your own children, haven't you?
3 of my own, yes.
So what made you decide to go into fostering?
Well, I think being a full-time mum, it was either a choice of going back to work, so my husband said, but I rather enjoy looking after children. So it's just a natural progression for me, and having been in the police force, seen some of these children, I just wanted to make a real help, to make a change to the
And
lives.
you can do that. You believe you've done that?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And with the support, 24-hour support we get, and the training, yes, you do have children with challenging behaviour, but there's always somebody on the end of a phone. We have regular meetings, foster carer support groups. And the thing I like, James, is when we all meet up and they say, I know how you feel, they do know how you feel because they've been through it. It's like a self-help group. It's lovely.
So if I can start by asking you, from Grimsby, what kind of influence has that had on you personally and your career?
Well, I think there's something about the Grimsby people which is very open and honest, and I think that's been the most important influence on me as a person and also on my music. I mean, I was born actually just a few hundred yards down the road, and then my mum and dad became publicans in Caister, and then in Skegness. And I just learnt to be comfortable and open with people, even though I went on to teach in some pretty posh public schools. and I think this is, as I say, I think it's helped to create in my music an openness and an honesty.
Because that's it, isn't it, in your career? You didn't start out in music, you had a few, or even if your other jobs were involved in music, it wasn't particularly composing that you went into straight off, was it?
No, it wasn't. No, I began as a teacher, and I began to write music when I was asked by the head of English in the school to write music for a Shakespeare play, which I did, and discovered I had quite a natural sort of gift for it. I obviously read music at university. I went to Durham University and thought about composing then, but the approach to composing was so weird and modern, and writing pieces of music for mobile phones and saucepans, you know, hitting saucepans. It was so weird and avant-garde. I thought, this isn't for me. But then, as I say, I wrote music for a school play, and then I was asked to write music for the school choir, and everything grew from that, really.
And would you say your style is more of the old-fashioned, would you say, or the older kind of influences?
Yes, I think so. When I was at university, I actually stayed on for a year to do an MA and studied the music of the period 1550 to 1650, which is pretty old. That's the period when the major and minor chords were developing. And those are the chords, of course, we use all the way through to the present day. Bach used them, the Beatles used them. But I studied the period when that all evolved, and I think that really helped to shape my music. And yes, my music's very much rooted in the past, though I believe it's also music of the present. Like the other day, we were listening to Classic FM, to the chart countdown, and I was number 2 in the classical charts last week, but we were listening to Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, and all of a sudden they played my music.
You're watching the best of Estuary TV News studio interviews. In April, Tony Jameson came to the studios to talk about a project called Sporting Memories.
Fantastic charity, a fantastic project. Would you maybe be able to sum up what it is that you do and why it's important?
Yeah, we use images of sport and memorabilia to trigger long-held memories, working with older people, particularly those who are living with dementia and memory problems, to offer community-based activities that unlock long-held memories, unite people to talk about their favourite teams and players, and ultimately to improve their mental well-being and their physical well-being.
And is that it with sport as well? Do everyone have sporting memories of some kind?
I think we do, whether it might be not enjoying PE at school. Not everybody is a huge sports fan, yeah. But we do all have memories of sport, be it watching the World Cup final in '66 on telly, or whether it's watching more recently, Virginia Wade winning Wimbledon in '77. We all have some memories. Others obviously have played sport and have really vivid memories of playing either amateur or professional sport, but also following your favourite football team or rugby league club. There's just so many memories that are made, and so many that we naturally forget until we get triggers to remind us.
And how do you trigger these memories?
We use a mixture of, we have some incredible powerful images of iconic sportsmen and women, which can often lead to unlocking lots of interesting conversations. A picture of Virginia Wade, for instance, winning Wimbledon, can lead to conversations about strawberries and cream. It can talk about conversations around what was happening in that year, and actually it was the Silver Jubilee, and it actually triggers memories for me of punk rock and listening to The Clash from a picture of Virginia Wade. Not everyone has that particular image around Virginia, but it's actually the images and the conversations actually contain a lot of humour, because there are so many stories around sport that it's a good social activity.
And it must be so rewarding to see these people come on and remember these things and develop. And do they seem happier? Do they seem more comfortable? What is it that actually brings about?
It's an activity. Traditionally, most activities that are offered to older people tend to be singing, bingo, knitting, those kind of things, which are all great and they all have their place. But particularly older men don't necessarily want to be involved in activities like that, and we find that this approach is quite attractive to older men in particular who may have watched or played sport throughout their lives, and it's a natural thing to do. We all reminisce throughout our lives. When we go into work on a Monday morning, we'll talk about what we did at the weekend, and often those conversations for men centre around how the local football team have performed. So we naturally reminisce, and those conversations are really comfortable ones to have. Now, someone who's maybe struggling with the short-term memory, if they get the triggers of images that actually unlock the long-term memories they have, it can lead to really comfortable but enjoyable conversations. And that in turn helps promote their cognitive functioning, it helps to maintain memory, and often it actually leads to people revisiting sports that they once played or watched and actually trying them out again.
Here in Caister, they're always walking as part of a healthy wellbeing initiative. Well, before the walkers set off, joining me is coordinator Jackie Brown. Jackie, you do this walk every week. Why?
Well, it's an initiative by Walking for Health, which is a national initiative, and it's been going since the year 2000. And in Caister, we've been walking every Wednesday morning at 10:30 from the parish church for the last 8 years, and we have approximately up to 20 walkers coming out with us walking each week, and we walk for approximately 3 miles each time, something for about an hour.
That is brilliant, the fact you've been going 8 years, and it's obviously popular. Do you walk whether it's rain, snow?
Well, we do have to do risk assessments, and if it's too icy or 3 foot in snow, which we have had here on the Wolds in the past, then walks are cancelled. But in 8 years, we've only ever cancelled a handful of walks. So we'll go out if it's drizzle, and we'll go out if it's looking a bit overcast, but very rarely do we cancel it, because we're quite a hardy lot, you see.
I was going to say, that's die-hard walking, isn't it, for you?
Is.
Now, I mean, you're in such a beautiful part of the Lincolnshire Wolds, and I'm assuming there are plenty of walks on your doorstep. Where do you go?
Well, we've got possibly 10 different routes that we walk. Some of them take part on the Viking Way, because we're quite lucky here that it passes through the centre of Caister. And then we have other little walks that we use. So you can't walk anywhere in Caister without having to negotiate hills. So it gets your heart going, and that's what Walking the Way to Health is about. It's about doing a little bit of social walking, getting your heartbeat breathing a little bit faster, and so far improving your health.
And that is the key thing, because most people, you know, probably think walking, oh, strenuous, you know, going for long walks. But it like you say, it's a social walk.
Yeah, well, health is, if you look at it like a triangle, you need the social interaction, the mental stimulation, and that's what you get when you're chatting to different people. People come along and they'll say, oh, I haven't realised I've been walking for an hour and that we've walked 3 miles because I've just been chatting to Flossie or whoever a neighbour was, you see, on the walk. And that's what makes it enjoyable. And usually when we come back into the church, we have a cup of tea, and sometimes it's chocolate biscuit. Special day today, we've got cake, because it's the Bowls Walking Festival.
In June, Matthew Grove, Police and Crime Commissioner for Humberside, came to talk about crime reduction, and he was followed by Tony Jewett from the Seafarers Mission.
Tell me briefly what the Crime Commissioner's Fund is.
It's a pot of money that I've been able to build by making savings from the cost of the former police authority. I'm substantially cheaper to administer than the former police authority. I've saved at least £300,000 per year, and I've also done what I said I would do, I promised I would do on my election, which is to sell this very opulent and extravagant building that I inherited from the police authority. It's a listed building, very spacious, oak panelling, custom-made carpets and leather Chesterfields. It is inappropriately grand for me, and it's in the wrong location. I want to move to a much more modest building, and that has liberated another £350,000. So I now have what will amount to about £1.5 million over the next 4 to 5 years, and I am now doing what I promised I would do, and I'm investing that into the community to help prevent crime. And I'm relying on the wisdom of the public. I have an absolute faith in the public's ability to identify cost-effective ways to prevent crime.
Do you represent more of a saving to the taxpayer than maybe they perceive?
Their perception was even worse than that. They didn't realise that there was an existing administration overseeing the running of the police. That's why that they saw that I was an additional cost. I wasn't. I was simply replacing an existing function that was so invisible they didn't know it existed. But my remit's far wider than the police authority. The police authority purely oversaw the administration of policing. I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner, and more than half my job is looking at those areas outside of policing. It's the prisons, it's the criminal justice system, it's probation. Those are areas where I spend an awful lot of my time, and where there are great opportunities to actually also reduce crime. Most crime is committed by people who are re-offending, who've committed crime before and go on to commit many, many more crimes. If I can work hard to help to reduce re-offending, it will have a big impact on the overall crime figures in this area.
Who can access the fund, and how can they go about getting access to it?
They basically go online, go onto my website, and the application forms are there. We're trying to get through the technical problems so they can actually apply online. I'm not looking for the best applications, I'm looking for the best projects. I'm hoping that this fund is very much targeted at smaller community groups with small pots of money that will get a huge return for their community. So it's the best projects I'm looking for, not necessarily the best written bid.
What exactly is the Fisherman's Mission doing these days?
Well, the Fisherman's Mission, obviously, all those years ago, it was involved heavily with the active fleet. But of course, now, with the demise in the industry in the 70s, our role now is more of a support network to the welfare of fishermen in and around the Grimsby communities. So we're there really to help them practically, financially, and support them with any medical equipment that they may need, just to really try to make life a little bit easier easier for them, because obviously when they were out fishing all them years ago, there was a lot of, you know, the bad weather would get through to the bones, and they'd have skeletal problems and mobility issues. So all of those issues now are coming to fruition, and they need support from us with things like recliner beds or wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, or just general support.
Well, the people who are going to sea in the heyday of the industry from the East Coast, from the Humber region, they're getting on a bit now, aren't they? I mean, it's fairly ancient.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have around 933 fishermen on our books at the Grimsby Fishermen's Mission, and I would say the ages vary, really. We have some from around about 50s right through to 80s and a couple in their 90s, but I would say the majority now are in their 70s. So yes, yeah, they're definitely moving on in years.
There's 3 or 4 decades have passed since the fleet was really a serious employer, and that's 3 or 4 decades ago is half a working lifetime ago, or more than that for somebody now in their 70s. What have they been doing with the second halves of their careers?
Well, sadly, and generally speaking now, because some of them would have gone on to the merchant side of things, onto the standby boats servicing the rigs, but that would be a small proportion. Generally speaking, and this is purely a personal view from what my experience is with the mission, is that the majority of them haven't really found work because there just isn't work, because their skill is fishing and anything associated with fishing. So although a lot of them went into the onto the standbys, a few would have gone through into the factory processing and become filleters, and a few would have found various other bits. However, the majority, I would say, were unsuccessful in finding work because they had no skills, nor were they at the time of life or at that age looking to learn new skills as well. So it's a very difficult period. So a lot of them are just really sat at home twiddling their thumbs.
We've had a busy year of studio guests. Now for something a bit different. We don't always get it right as presenters, so here's some of the gaffes made by us all, including myself.
Should do a bloopers. It'd be funny to release around Christmas time or something. Yeah.
You did the party line about Ed Miliband was very impressive.
You are the worst, right? You're the worst, right? Okay, yeah, that's fine. You're the worst. You are the worst. Yeah.
The strikes are a response to pension, which the union refers to as vicious. And I'm going to start that again because I said pension.
Oh, what now?
All just as well.
Second,
yeah.
All right.
19. Great.
No. I'm no fun. Well, that's all from us. Join me next time for some more of the best of 2013. Goodbye.